Two, one.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's well and happy. Hey, excellent. Come on in. Wanted to talk for just a few minutes about financial pitfalls that young adults often run into. So that's essentially what this is, just a handful of insights according to the literature that I've managed to look at over the past 4 or 5 weeks, basically, past 4 or 5 weeks. So with that in mind, we'll just kind of jump in and get started. Oh, there we go. So number one on the list is apparently the same thing it was back when I was in school. Getting a credit card, getting very excited about the ability to spend lots of money very quickly, and then discovering that those interest rates really pile up fast. So that is still number one, carrying high interest debt. So credit cards often have 20 to 30% annual percentage rates. 20 seems to be much more normal. Anyway, if you should happen to have a credit card and use it, you will quickly discover, of course, that you have the option of making minimum payments, which sounds very exciting. But of course, it's not exciting at all. It's terrible. Minimum payments barely cover the interest charges, which means you're not really paying off the principal, which means your debt just hangs around forever and ever. So paying off high interest debt is highly recommended as one of the first things a person does. You can obviously check the math on your own, and you'll discover that there's very few other things you can do with money that will give you a higher return than getting rid of high interest debt. The only thing I could come up with just off the top of my head was if you happen to be working for an employer who offers a 401k or a 403b match, then of course that's like an instant 100% return. So you still want to do that. That's actually a better return than paying off the debt. But anything else I can come up with, your money is better used paying down your money is better used paying down the high interest debt. Excuse me, Stephen, is the camera here?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay, thank you. Well, I just wasn't sure what it looked like. I appreciate it. Okay, thank you. Right, so your money is best used paying down high interest debt, with the possible exception of, do take advantage of an employer match if you have an employer that offers a 401k or 403b. And then here was just a quick reminder of sort of how that works. So say you run up $1,000 on a credit card, which is obviously very easy to do. Suppose it charges an annual percentage rate of 20%. That works out to about 1.67% per month. Minimum payment on that for many credit cards that I looked into would be about $20. Of course, the math kicks in here, right? So 1.67% of $1,000, that's like $16.70, and you're paying $20. So your minimum payment really is just paying interest and a few dollars towards the principal. You will be in debt forever. And of course, since you're going to be in debt forever making interest payments, the total amount you pay will be far, far, far more than the $1,000, easily north of $1,500, in fact, for this particular example. So obviously, instead, don't do that. Standard advice, which most of us give our kids, is, don't put anything on your credit card that you can't afford to pay off at the end of the month. Because life does happen, you may find yourself in the situation when you do, at some point, have more on your credit card than you can pay off at the end of the month. So make it a priority to just pay it down as quickly as possible. And always pay much more than the minimum. You really, really don't want to make minimum payments. That doesn't help you at all with credit cards. Pay it down. So that's number one, carrying high interest debt. You don't want to do that. Number two, not having an emergency fund, which often then goes with number one. Why did you put car repairs on the credit card? Well, because you didn't have an emergency fund to pay for the car repairs. Done that myself many years ago and learned the hard way that that was just foolish. So yeah, you want to build up an emergency fund. Don't feel bad if it takes you a few years to do it, or at least a few months to do it. Most people, particularly when they're 22, 23, just got their degree, just started their career, you got a number of needs that you need to take care of right away. So it may take you a while to build up an emergency fund, but build up an emergency fund, right? Make it a priority to make that happen, because that way car repairs, basic medical bills, or being between jobs isn't going to be more financial trouble than it has to be. So you want to do that. Current recommendation for pretty much everything I looked at is go ahead and use a high yield savings account. You want your money to be liquid. You want to be able to get to it quickly in case an emergency does arise, and high yield savings account kind of accomplish that. You could also just use a standard savings account at your bank, credit union, or savings and loan association, but the high yield does give you the possibility of earning a little bit on that. So Moving on to number three. Number third, this has been an issue that people have talked about literally for decades now. So employers who do offer 401ks or 403bs commonly report that only a fraction of the employees who are eligible for these systems bother to sign up for them. So that's essentially not taking your full compensation package. So you really want to do that. So if you have a job and you are offered a 401k or 403b, so these are retirement accounts. These are retirement accounts. You want to take the time to fill out the form with HR and go ahead and sign up for it. It's a great thing. The employee match, the way that works, of course, is you put in $1 and they put in some percentage of that. Many of them match it dollar for dollar, up to some percentage of your salary. So maybe up to 5%, 6%, 7%. So if you're eligible for that, you definitely want to take advantage of that. And you want to take advantage of that right away. As soon as you're eligible, sign up for it and start putting money into that system. Definitely want to put enough to capture the full match, because again, that can be like doubling your money, 100% return instantly. There's really nothing else that gives you that. So definitely take advantage of it if you have the option. Moving on to number 4. Again, this is kind of classic and apparently is still an issue according to the recent literature. People wait, people put off. You just started working, you got other bills to pay, you're happy to finally get a paycheck. I remember getting my first paycheck with a comma in it. I was very excited about the comma. So, you want to do things, and you should do a few things, but don't put off saving for retirement until you're quote unquote older, because the longer you wait, the more you have to save to get anywhere. Right? There's this beautiful, beautiful feature of compounding. The sooner you start, the faster it grows, because you get returns on your returns, you get interest on your interest, you get growth on your growth. However you want to say it, it's a beautiful thing. So a common example is the one I mentioned right here at the top. The 22-year-old investing 100 a month accumulates significantly more by 65 than a 35-year-old investing 200 a month, assuming sort of standard market rates of return of, say, 7 or 8%. The sooner you start, the better off you're going to be. Time in the market is one of the key drivers to how much you're going to have. So just as a quick reminder, I threw down sort of 2 formulas you've probably encountered at some point in your life. So the first is the continuous compounding formula, and the second is the annual compounding formula, whichever one of those you may have been exposed to before. Right? The future value of some sum X is equal to, and notice where the T is. It is literally the exponent, as an exponential growth. Interest on your interest, growth on your growth, returns on your returns. You really want to take advantage of that. So start as soon as it is realistic to do so. You might not be able to start the very second you turn 22 or whatever, but as soon as you can start saving for retirement, do. The longer you're in the market, the more you will have. You want to take advantage of that. Another one is, again, pretty classic, I think, and now has some vocabulary terms associated with it. So I thought that was cool, but it's a simple enough idea. Your income goes up and your spending goes up too. Well, of course it does. You can afford a nicer car. You can afford a better apartment. You can afford to take cooler vacations than you could before. So of course you're going to want to do that. What you want to avoid, though, is thinking of savings as some fixed amount. Think of it as a percentage. Right? You want to be saving 15%. You want to be saving 20%. You want to be saving a constant percentage of your income. So as your income goes up, the amount you're saving goes up with it. If you're interested in sort of reading more about that, check out Lifestyle Inflation or Hedonic Treadmill. There's quite a literature on this and the problems people run into, but it's a simple enough idea. Right? As your income rises, go ahead and let your savings rise with it. Like thinking of savings as a fixed percentage of your income, not as just, oh, I save $200 a month or I save $100 a month. Right? Go ahead and do it that way. Okay. Number 6, financing depreciating assets. So you will at some point have to acquire reliable transportation, the automobile. The automobile is famous in sort of personal finance circles in several respects. Number 1 is you need one, most likely. Maybe most of us do need a car to get to work, to get to school. It's important. They are expensive. So you might very well have to finance it. You might have to borrow the money. But cars do this terrible thing. As soon as you drive a new car off the lot, it loses value. it starts depreciating, and it depreciates pretty fast, sadly enough, at least in the early months. Once it's already lost 30 or 40% of its value, then it slows down, particularly if it's a model or a make that is popular. But it depreciates pretty fast. So it's commonly regarded as a mistake to purchase a vehicle at the top of what you can afford with a really, really long car loan, because that's going to tie up money for months and months and months. You can do the math, 70 to 84 months. That's going to tie up money for years that you can't do anything else with. It's usually highly recommended that you think about buying a less expensive vehicle, get a shorter length auto loan, and therefore be able to pay it off faster and have money available for other purposes than simply paying interest on an asset that is depreciating in value as you use it. This isn't saying you can't buy a car. Like I said, in life, you're gonna need transportation. You got to get to work, but you do want to be careful about just instantly assuming to get the best you can afford with the longest. Stretching that out is tempting, right? It's very tempting to stretch out those loans because it lowers your monthly payment, looks very favorable towards your budget. But keep in mind that's money that you're tying up for years and years. So consider not doing that. Consider a reliable used vehicle, shorter term loan, or a price well below what you can afford. The freed up money, of course, can go to your savings, help you out later in life. Number 7, this is also a classic, and I confess I was guilty of this when I was a young adult myself, neglecting insurance. Neglecting insurance. It just seems like an easy way to save money, not to have that renter's insurance, not to carry health insurance, and not to get disability insurance. Good Lord, why would you get that when you're young? But of course, the issue is if disaster strikes, that's when you need those things, right? Renter's insurance is actually very, very cheap, and it's not usually a disaster if something happens to your stuff, but it is your stuff. And if you don't have any kind of renter's insurance, then it's going to be hard to replace it. So that could certainly be a hindrance. Health insurance, I think, is pretty straightforward. Health insurance, more specifically, medical bills have been the number one cause of personal bankruptcy in the United States for decades, and they are still listed as one of the number one causes of personal bankruptcy in the United States. You want health insurance so that if you need serious medical assistance, the cost does not become a burden on you for years into the future. So you definitely want to take care of that. And disability, of course, is exactly what it sounds like. If something should happen to you and you're unable to work, then disability kicks in and replaces a portion of the income you've lost. So it certainly doesn't make everything good, but it does reduce the amount of harm that you did, whatever just happened to you, car accident or whatever that was, right, imposes on your finances. So you want to certainly consider those things, give some serious thought to those things. Health insurance, renters or homeowners insurance, and disability coverage. If there are other folks who depend on your income, think about life insurance. It's the kind of thing to do, right? It's the responsible thing to do. If you should suddenly pass and they needed your paycheck to put food on the table or pay the mortgage or whatever, they're going to wish you had done that. So, obviously think ahead and consider that. So this whole slide just boils down to don't neglect insurance. Think it through, right? Think carefully about it. Look around. You should find that you can get pretty reasonable coverage, pretty reasonable rates, particularly if you're young and healthy. So the eighth problem I ran across was an interesting one in the sense that it was kind of a new idea to me, but that is folks getting interested in putting their money in the market. Well, as a person who talks about this, that usually excites me. Like, yes, you want to put your long-term savings in some kind of low-cost index fund, so it'll grow and you'll get that 7, 8, 9, possibly 10% annual return over the next 20 or 30 years. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. Yeah, but apparently there's a thing where folks think of it, oh, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm thinking this is going to go up next week, so I'm going to put a bunch of money in it now, and then when it goes up, I can take it out and I can go buy a blank. So that kind of sounds a lot like gambling. That's kind of like going to Las Vegas. Usual recommendation for the personal finance crowd: if you want to go to Las Vegas, go to Las Vegas. Just budget that as a fun trip, and you're going to blow some money. And yeah, you might win blackjacks, you might win at the dice, but you probably won't. But you'll have a fun time while you lose your money. Using the stock market to do the same thing is a bad idea. So you don't want to put your important income into speculative ideas. Right? Stock market's for investing. Right? It's for investing. It's not for just playing around. So you want to do the usual advice we give people. You want to build portfolio of low-cost diversified index funds or exchange-traded funds, ETFs. If you're not sure where else to start, just think S&P 500, Google low-cost index fund, S&P 500. You'll have many options. Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab are like the big providers, the common ones that are always recommended. You can't really go wrong with any of that. And that'll get you started. That'll get you started thinking about it. You do some reading and decide which ones to use. That's what's usually recommended. If that seems like too much, then the other thing we always tell people is, well, then just buy shares in a few companies whose products you like and just hold it. And now you're in the stock market. Now you've started saving for the future. Now you have an incentive to pay attention. So you pay attention, do the reading, and eventually you'll probably end up in mutual funds or ETFs, because that's where most of us end up, as an easy way to get a diversified portfolio at a low cost so you can capture the proceeds of capitalism for yourself and your family as the market grows. Right? If you want to play speculative positions, you can certainly do that. But again, keep in mind, the thing with speculation is if everything goes wrong, you will lose it. So it should be money you can afford to lose. Number 9 on my list could easily have been moved to the front because this is classic. It's been happening for decades. Read what you're going to sign where money is concerned. We are all sort of trained by the internet to ignore user agreements and things like that because we all clicked accept so that we can open up PowerPoint or so that we can play the game or do whatever it is we're trying to do. But if money is concerned, take a few seconds and actually have a look at what you're agreeing to. Student loans, leases, credit cards, those buy now, pay later programs like Affirm and Klarna and a few others. And check out the fine print, see what they say. Some of them can be great deals if, and then there's always some condition, right? So make sure the condition works for you. So I believe with Affirm, the condition is you never, ever miss a payment. It can be quite affordable and reasonable if that's the truth. But the second you miss a payment, it's suddenly like a credit card. You're suddenly paying really high interest. So have a look at that. Make sure that big, bold interest rate, 1% that you see on the advertisement, make sure that doesn't expire the month after you sign up. Make sure that that's actually the interest rate for the whole time you're going to use this program or this thing, right? Check it out, in other words, which is basically all there is to say to that. Check it out, right? Before signing any financial agreement, understand the interest rate, the total cost, and what happens if you miss a payment. The other thing is occasionally, if you're following sort of personal finance literature, you'll quickly discover that they always say to get rid of the debt as fast as you can. Yeah, get rid of the debt as fast as you can. But sometimes they charge you for that, for the privilege of getting rid of the debt. So look and see if there's a fee for paying things off early. And if it is, make sure it's a fee you're comfortable with. If you don't like any of it, shop around. The market for financial products is pretty competitive. You can often find a better deal, particularly if they're going to charge you a ridiculous fee for for paying things off early. So definitely shop around, read the fine print. Pretty classic, pretty standard advice. Some would argue common sense. And yet, almost everyone I know my age, at some point in their life, didn't do that and got kicked in the butt when they were younger for not doing it. So don't do that. Check it out. And then finally, the last one. This one is just kind of one that shows up in several places. This notion that people hold off, particularly on the long-term savings idea, right? They hold off on that long-term savings because they're like, in the stock market, that sounds risky. Mutual fund, yeah, I get it. It's a pool of money where someone manages it and buys a bunch of assets. And if I bought in the mutual fund, then I own a teeny tiny fraction of all those assets and I get returns from the fund. Yeah, but that still seems, I don't quite understand that. That seems fuzzy. Exchange traded fund, I mean, that doesn't even have an easy name. That must be complicated, right? There's a tendency to just assume all this stuff is like big and hairy and scary. It's not. Go ahead and dive in. Go ahead and dive in. Don't, because that brings you back to the earlier slide, right? If you wait till you're 32, 35 to start saving for the future, then you've waited and you don't want to wait. Go ahead and dive in, get started right away with the beauty of the internet. There's all kinds of websites. Investopedia is very popular. NerdWallet is very popular. Check them out. They have all kinds of fun articles where they compare various financial products, various accounts at various banks, credit loans, savings and loan associations. Feel free to just dive in and get going. You will quickly discover that you do know enough to start because it's not that hard to get there. standard advice. And if you don't know what else to do when you're young, open up some kind of retirement account, Roth IRA, put some money in some kind of low-cost S&P 500 index fund, start making contributions every month, and yeah, start reading. Get more informed as you go on. You may very well conclude that actually that was a fine choice for you anyway. You never really need to change it. Anyway, that's kind of where we are. So sort of 10 things that, according to the literature that I ran across the past 4 or 5 weeks, are still, most of them the word would be still, still common problems for young adults with money. And now you know a little more about it so that you don't fall into those traps. Anyone have questions or concerns?
I'll check online, see what we have. Not so much a question, but just a comment. I'm in my mid-50s, and
Yeah.
it was probably during the pandemic when I first started buying stocks. I mean, I had retirement benefits, I had the 401k type, that the university provides. But I was in my 50s before started buying ETFs, buying specific stocks. And so I know that my return on investment is not going to be as great as if I had started doing that in the 20s. So I would just like to encourage everyone who's listening online, because we have close to 15 students online right now, as well as
fantastic
staff, to take advantage of some of these things and get started so that the return is better, that you have that possible, and not wait until you're about 50 years old and in the middle of a pandemic to say, yeah, stocks is something I want to start investing in, or whatever your investment of choice is. Don't wait.
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Full confession. I was 30 or 31 before I forgot. I bought my first share of anything. And again, I could have started a little bit earlier than that, but I was actually I was that guy. I just figured I didn't know enough. But in fact, I did. I knew enough. I just didn't realize I knew. So yeah, definitely get started. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you for attending this session of Beyond the Classroom.
Yes, if you don't have any questions coming in, I will stop the recording. 3, 2.